Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luca's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my.
All right, Luca Nation. As promised, we're bringing you the NBA season preview. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I had a lot of food before this episode, and I feel a food coma coming on as we're recording this. So this is going to be a good one. This is
That's
going to
pretty
be
cool. Are you
pretty
able to make
cool.
it through? Are you going to be able to make it through the episode here?
If you guys just hear one long tangent from Cage, it's not that he's just going off on another one of his tangents. It's actually I've just fallen asleep.
Nice. Also, Andrew he's rubbing it in as I sit here in the snow. He's out on a balcony overlooking the ocean. It's just a gorgeous backdrop. I wish you guys could all be there with him because that would be a funny episode. So,
who's my starting lineup? Who are the 5 people you're sending here to spend this time with me?
Oh, I don't know, dude. I'm gonna send myself, dude. I want to get out of the Northeast. Forget about it. I'm not sending you, but I want to send you every member of the Luca Nation come visit you and hang out in Mexico. That'll be pretty. And then we'll do an episode live on location. Listen, before we jump into the NBA stuff, a couple fun things to chat about, right? A couple fun, like hobby deal, right? So last night after our episode, already posted, and we try to do daily stuff so that hopefully you guys, appreciate that we can kind of, bring to you what they call evanescent. It was something I learned in criminal law. Hot pursuit and evanescent evidence is what they called it, right? Where, normally you need a search warrant. You see that stuff on TV. But if you happen to be chasing someone, if you're in hot pursuit as a police officer, if you happen to be chasing someone and you break in, that person breaks into someone's apartment and you're in pursuit of that criminal going through someone's apartment, and they pass by, and as they're running through the living room of this apartment chasing this burglar or whatever it is, Andrew and his friends are sitting at the living room table with a bong, a couple of lines of coke, and they're just doing their stuff. He can arrest Andrew and his friends. The police can arrest Andrew and his friends there because he was in hot pursuit and evanescent evidence. So that's what I think of when things just kind of pop up for some reason. So my what popped up for me was yesterday. You sent it over to me. You were the the guy who scooped this. The PSA subbers are getting notifications from PSA that they should stop advertising 20 and 45 day turnarounds, which I think anybody who has any knowledge in the hobby knows that 20 and 45 day turnarounds are really right now 4 or 5 months to 6 months, turnarounds anyway. So, it really isn't news to anyone, but I guess they just want to make sure that the group subbers are making sure that people know that there's really no such thing as a 20 or a 45 day, even though, that was the way that they were being advertised. And you can't really blame anyone in this. There's a huge, volume jump, but I happened to check my PSA account yesterday. So remember the last time we talked about this, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was angry because a submission just got in on 12/16 that I sent in August, and that that PSA alleged they got in the mail on September 16th. So it was a full 3 months for them to just log it in. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't complain because their website said 12 weeks. If you look today, the website says 15 weeks just to log your stuff in. 15 weeks. You're talking about nearly 4 months from when they get it to when they start the clock on your time. So that's pretty crazy. It's a very interesting.
It dovetails really well into our partnership, right? Because as the market changes, as the market matures, as more people grade, as there's less money to be made, at least short term in grading, I think that dovetails really well into our partnership with StarStock, doesn't it? Because that's an opportunity for you to buy cards raw, invest in the players that you want to invest in without the worry or the hassle of shipping, USPS, which has been really slow, and grading, which has been a really big challenge. And then you could have cash flow. You could day trade and make real profits short term that could kind of subsidize some of those losses that you might have had with cards that are out in grading that you don't know when they're going to get back.
Yeah, well, listen, what it tells me is the vast majority of rookies, Prism, let's just say it's March 3rd. The season, we'll talk about it today, the season's supposed to go to what, May 22nd, I think is what it is. And then the playoffs will be May 22nd to July 22nd. Well, let's just say you happen to like a rookie on a team that might not make the playoffs. Let's say it's LaMelo Ball. And while I think they might be on the bubble there for the playoffs, I don't know whether or not they make the playoffs. But that means LaMelo Ball, you get his Prism card. If you get it the week it comes out and buy it on eBay, the beginning of March, and you get it in your hands the middle of March, you're most likely not going to have that card back in your hands unless you want to pay $100 for a quick turnaround grading on that one on a base card. You're not getting that back in your hands until he's a second-year player, which is just, that's very different this year than it's ever been in years before. And yeah, I think it does. It's not something I was thinking about, but I think you're 100% right. I think it does. It may change the way people are trading these players, right? It may be more of a raw kind of trade rather than, in years past, the benchmark for a player was that PSA 10 Prism rookie card. In the beginning of the season, it looks like the benchmark is going to be the base Prism draft, because you're not going to have the Prism cards or any of these other cards come out until midway through the season. So it's very interesting. And obviously PSA is not, they're not turning this around anytime soon. I heard they had a massive hiring, but obviously their countdown is not going in the direction we'd all want it to go. If it went from, 8 to 10 weeks to 12 weeks to now 15 weeks just to log your stuff in, that's crazy. And on top of that, the post office delays. I got stuff that I sent out, December 7th, just priority mail today. It's still not there. Hopefully with Christmas, with the holiday time and, we go into next year, some of that fixes, but it's all these ancillary things for the hobby.
Yep.
Also, I'm going to give Andrew a chance to yell at me a little bit. I messaged Jordan, our producer, this morning with some what I thought was hot off the press evidence. There are a lot of people out there who like Rui. A lot of people like Rui Hachimura, right? A lot of people think he's a good player this year, second-year player. Ian happens to be a fan of his. We have a couple of his cards. We got them graded ourselves, and they're in our collection here. People thought he was going to take a step forward this year and be one of the hotter players. And so what's funny is we're able, because we're a daily podcast. What we're able to do is we're able to kind of bring you stuff that's new, right? That's what we were talking about. So the Rui Hachimura thing is one of them, right? So this is one of those things, right, where I have to give Andrew a chance to be mad at me, right? So I see this article about Rui Hachimura and how he is going to be out for a little while because he has pink eye. And I saw something from his coach saying, "Oh, that's okay, so he'll be back soon." And I saw an article today that said he's going to be missing 3 weeks because of a severe case of conjunctivitis. And I'm an idiot, right? If you guys don't know this yet, I am an idiot. And the first thing I think of is that the Shallow Hal, not Hallow Shall, the Shallow Hal movie scene where he doesn't want to see Gwyneth Paltrow in her true form, so he covers his eyes with like Vaseline and thinks that he says, "I got a really bad case of like pink eye." So I tell Jordan, who is our producer, I'm like, "Hey, maybe you do something with that. Put up a post." And we posted it. It's up on our Instagram. And I get a like the teenage son who took the car but shouldn't have, and dad gets mad and grounds him and takes the keys away. That was Andrew. It's like, duh, you can't put stuff like that up there. Poor guy. I'm an injured athlete myself. I wouldn't want someone making fun of my knee injury. It ended my career.
Well, let me tell you.
I could have been in the MLS. I could have been a contender. And, so I have to apologize to anybody out there who was upset or did not like that post about Rui's conjunctivitis. Blame me. Send me the message and tell me what an idiot I am.
So last June, it was my buddy's wedding, and we went to the Jersey Shore, Wildwood. I don't know if you know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all like our soccer buddies.
I may or may not have gotten a urination in public ticket there. Maybe, possibly.
That fits right in. But it was his wedding. We don't see each other very often, like after college. The first year out of college, you see each other all the time. 8th year out of college, you're rarely seeing each other. You see each other at each other's weddings. So this is his wedding. We all go there. People fly in from Finland, from Europe, God knows where. And I'm working at Gary's during that time. Wedding, it's great. It's so much fun. But we stay in like a motel, hotel, Holiday Inn, whatever.
Motel, Holiday Inn. I got it. I saw the reference.
Motel, hotel, Holiday Inn.
If your girl starts acting up,
tell her to call a friend.
No, then you take her friend.
then you but anyway, so it's a weekend away. I come back to New York City, go to work at Team Gary, busy Monday, and my eyes start swelling up. And I get pink eye. First, I get pink eye in one eye, and then I get pink eye in the other eye. So I
This is
felt
what
for
you
the
get
guy,
from taking your girlfriend's friend to the Holiday Inn. You get conjunctivitis. You're lucky that's all you got.
It sucked, man. It sucked. It's so irritable, man. It's gross. People make stupid jokes like did someone poop on your pillow or fart in your pillowcase. Oh man. So I feel for the guy. And how much worse timing do you get? One day before season. So
well,
I feel
listen.
for the guy. Maybe I'm a little bit too
gets
sappy.
better. Let's hope he gets better. You know, our goal was not to mock an injury. It was just my stupid brain where we went. But listen, I mean, what better way to lead off our NBA season kickoff? So listen, there's a lot of ways to do this, but you are our basketball guy, right? So a lot of times when we do our football previews, and it's just like, I'm going to go, I want your input. I'm going to say some things that you're probably not going to agree with, and you know this stuff better than me. I'm going to try to put some card stuff in there. I do have a fun way to start it off, right? So I don't love like hot take or lightning round stuff, but I do love a lot of people do this like going into the season. I've seen people do like bold predictions and bold prediction of the Nets win the whole championship or whatever. How about this? How about I'm going to start it off and you tell me whether you agree or disagree. I'm going to start it off with kind of like an underrated, overrated type of thing, right? So teams that I think are underrated and teams that I think are overrated and kind of why, right? So I'll go with underrated first, and read into this.
Overrated based on expectations, right?
Yeah, based on what you're hearing in the news, based on the pump ups, based on, and this applies to cards too. I mean, you'll see from where I go with my underrated and my overrated, what I wrote down with my notes here. It also applies to sort of guys in the hobby that people are high on. So underrated. I'm gonna say underrated. Or should I do overrated first? What do you think? People would like the overrated first? What do you think?
Underrated. I always think of myself, I think we're underrated as a podcast. I always pride myself as the underdog. So I love the underrated.
Well, I know we're underrated. Even though we are the best out there and we're the number one seed, we're Alabama favored by 117 points over Notre Dame in the college football playoff. It doesn't matter. We're still underrated. So here you go. Underrated. 3 teams. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Underrated. All right. A lot of people expect Timberwolves to be one of the worst teams in basketball. And I don't agree with that. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is a legitimate player, borderline superstar. Some people want to call him superstar, but borderline as much of a superstar as you can have in Minnesota. And he only played in 35 games last year. Name me somebody else with his size who averages 26 and change points per game and shoots over 40% from downtown on 8 attempts per game, right? So a full season 100%. Of him, good stuff.
Stat pattern. Really, he puts up some numbers.
Puts up some real numbers. D'Angelo Russell played in, how many games? 11 games for the T-Wolves last year. So we don't even know what this duo could look like. I mean, we could be looking at the next power duo in the league. 2 younger guys who have not had a chance to really play together. And really under the radar addition. I don't know how you feel about this guy, but I love him. They added Ricky Rubio in the offseason. Talk about a stable presence at point guard for 2 younger guys that haven't had any real direction, haven't had any real team chemistry. Ricky Rubio can run an offense, and he's going to create looks for both Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. Throw in the fact that on top of those 3, you just added the first overall pick, Anthony Edwards, and Malik Beasley, who can score whenever he wants as well. He only played 14 games for them. How is that team not significantly better than what they were last year? This is a team where, I mean, we don't do betting stuff on these things, right? But if you, I don't know what the over-under is for their wins on the season, but whatever it is, I'd be taking the over because people are just not giving them any respect at all. And you want to put that from a card perspective, Karl-Anthony Towns cards, D'Angelo Russell cards, these guys are cards where they're significantly overlooked by the people who have come in the years after them. Right? People will 100% go for a Tatum or a Trey, Luka. Last year, you can probably get some of those guys' cards, D'Angelo Russell and Karl-Anthony Towns, around the price of like a Darius Baisley cards. Hell, I saw somebody spend $7,000 the other day on a Matisse Thybulle card. Right? I mean, his Nebula went last night for over $7,000. So, I mean, there's a lot of recency bias, and these guys have not had significant success in the league. Do I think they're winning a championship this year? No, but I think they're an underrated team, and there's definitely some room to go bargain hunting with those guys. So there's number one team. What do you think?
I like it.
All right, number two team. Here's where you might not like it. Underrated. The Houston Rockets. Why? Because they have been thrown in the trash heap, man, right? Everybody's expecting them to take a huge step back, right? Is there, if he's healthy, which is a huge if, but is there a huge step back from Westbrook to John Wall? I know you're not a huge Westbrook fan, right? But could it be possible that if Harden stays there, and I know he's like a walking nightmare. I just saw a press conference with him. They say, hey, now you're here for a couple of practices. Oh, we passed this stuff. And he's like, next question. It reminded you of like Marshawn Lynch, when they do the press conference, I'm just here so I don't get fined. That's kind of what it reminds me, those kind of press conferences. But if he's there, couldn't you see Wall and him actually being a better fit as teammates to play together than what Westbrook and Harden were? Not to mention they added in Christian Wood, right? Nice offseason.
I like Christian Wood a lot, by the way. Christian Wood is good, man. Christian Wood gets buckets.
Right? I mean, and they got a lot of role players. I know you don't love Eric Gordon, but no one's expecting him to do
love
too
Eric
much,
Gordon.
Right?
I love Eric Gordon.
So you got Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Daniel House, right? Don't they have a lot of stuff there? And so here's a nice flyer, right? If you're betting, I did look this one up. I should have looked up the total for the Minnesota wins. I'm sure it's nothing, right? But right now, most places are offering plus 500 for the Rockets to win the Southwest Division. There's value there. There's value in a play like that. I'm not saying obviously they're not favored to win it, but there's value there with a team that has that much value. Really, that whole bet hinges on them keeping Harden. Right now, I mean, look, the season's starting, so it looks like when the season opens, Harden's going to be a Rocket. I haven't heard of Ben Simmons getting on a plane anytime soon, right? To leave Philly. So for right now, there's my second underrated team, only because everybody thinks they're.
A quote comes to mind. I don't even know if I just made this up or this is real, but the snake follows the head, and I just think the leader of that team doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. I don't think he inspires a lot of belief, and I think belief is a big deal. So I'm not a buyer of James Harden. We actually got a DM. Are you guys going to come up with any James Harden plays? It's just a hard no, because I'm not a fan. I don't think he has a ton of upside, and I think his career's over in 2, 3, 4 years with his priorities right now.
I mean, listen, if he scores enough, isn't he looking to be the four-time scoring champ, right? He's been scoring champ last 3. I mean, that's a pretty impressive thing. And look, he seems to have been like part of a lot of experiments. The experiment to bring Russ in, the experiment to go small against the Lakers, which obviously backfired. Maybe
50 strip clubs in 50 days.
Yes,
experiment.
Yeah. Listen,
that has paid off.
Are you gonna fault strip clubs? I mean, this is just gonna become part of sports. I mean, did you see? I think there was an article that said Dwayne Haskins, who can't get out of his own way. I mean, no mask at a strip club. I mean, like, come on. I mean. Anyway, it is what it is. But I'm not putting them as world beaters. I'm not putting them as champions. I just think they have now, because of the drama with Harden, because of the Westbrook trade, they've been relegated to a bottom of the barrel type of team. And I don't think they are that. I think there's value in them overachieving a bit. That's the deal. Another one?
I think they're going to be a playoff team.
One of the forgotten teams in the East. Underrated. Again, not a world beater, because the East is now real top heavy, and this is not a team that's cracking into that top. But if they're going to be better than I think people are giving them credit for, the Magic. No superstars. Lot of very good players.
Just dumpster diving this morning.
No, that's it. This is my 3 for underrated. But give me a chance to do it, right? This is a team that, even though they had a lot of injuries last year, didn't they give the Bucks a hard time in the first round? They definitely pushed the Bucks in the first round of the playoffs last year. They did. And if anybody wants to give some credit, you are a fan of the right coach in the right situation. Steve Clifford. Steve Clifford, right? I mean, that is a great coach, right? I mean, Clifford, know they're going to be disciplined. You know they're going to play defense. I watched 2 games of their preseason, which, by the way, is half the preseason, because I'm a Hornets fan. And let me tell you something. I watched Cole Anthony has star potential. A little on the smaller side, but he's a guy who can score. He's a guy. I mean, look, LaMelo Ball is not a world-class defender, obviously, and that's going to be one of the spots where he has to get better at. But I have friends who don't watch much sports, and they were texting me, "Hey, your Hornets were playing. I saw your kid LaMelo Ball. Who's that other kid taking him to school? Who's taking his lunch?" And it was Cole Anthony, putting a move on him. And I'm like, "Oh wow, that's it's interesting stuff." But if any of their young players, if Fultz takes a step forward, Mo Bamba actually plays a little bit, right? Talk about upside there. Their season win percentage has been set at, like DraftKings put it at like 43.5%, right? That they're going to win, right? I think they have a chance of being better than 500, which is the definition of being an underrated team, right? They have a shot of being a 500 team. Aaron Gordon, Nikola Vucevic, Terrence Ross, Fournier, the kid Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz. It just, those are all, there's no superstar, right? I get it. And there's no like name that you're like, wow, that's a guy who's clear cut all-star and, all NBA. But those are all good players. And they're all good players who are going to play defense on a team that's going to be coached well and disciplined. So to say, that they are, a 40% win team, I think it's just they're a little underrated. I don't think they're going to win any championship, but there you go. And the more fun part, overrated. Who should I
let me
first?
jump in here because I'm not as long-winded as Mr. Cage here, so I'll bring it to you guys quick. My 3 teams for underrated, the Clippers. I think the Clippers are actually in better shape this season than previous.
Okay. I like it.
So, I think Kawhi is a top 3 player in the NBA. I think Ty Lue is a good coach for what they have. They added Serge Ibaka, which I think is huge. Yes, losing Montrezl Harrell is kind of annoying, but I think it's actually kind of a kick in the butt. It's going to piss them off a little bit seeing him across the hall. I think that team. I honestly think that team is a 1 seed out of the West. Not that I don't think the Lakers have more talent. I'm wondering if the Lakers kind of sleepwalk through this season again. So I think the Clippers are a really underrated team.
So if you're looking at it from like betting totals, right? Like, while the Lakers might ultimately win the championship, you might put a bet in that the Clippers win more games and end up a higher seed because the Lakers might be sleepwalking, like you said, and turn it on. So it's funny. That's a great play. It's exactly why I say the Nets are one of my 3 overrated teams this year. Okay, and I hope I do not turn off people during this season, but I have to tell you, I think
no one likes him.
I think Kevin Durant is one of the most overrated people in the sport. So
funny.
So
That's
overrated.
So funny. I was thinking the exact same thing before this episode, and I was like, do we say that? People are going to get so – it's going to get –
people are going to lose their minds, and I get it. But listen to me, all right? I know Gary Vee loves him. I know Gary Vee flexes his cards. I know people love him, and I know the numbers are there. And you have a hard time at the same time me saying Carmelo Anthony is one of the greatest – but Kevin Durant's not. Durant's a better player.
All due respect to Gary. I've seen him play ball. He invited me, and we play basketball at his house, actually. His social media game is much better than his basketball game and acumen.
And I like Durant, right? And I think he's a great player. I'm coming at this from just a people think they are going to come out of the East and just from a betting perspective. You ready? So much hype, right? So when Kevin Durant and Kyrie played together the last time, how'd they look?
You mean the preseason?
No, I mean when they played together before this year, last year. How'd they look?
They've never played together.
Oh, that's right. They never played together. That's 100% correct.
And they're big egotistical personalities too.
With all this
there's
hype,
one ball.
You would think that they already won 3 championships, or that they've played together in some AAU leagues before or something. No, they have they played a meaningful game together? Definitely not. No one's seen it. Too many unknowns to back this, guys. Kevin Durant has not played in a year and a half, and Kyrie only played 20 games for Brooklyn last year. Now, I'm not saying Durant is not a good player. I'm not saying Kyrie's not good. They are both incredible players. They're both, all-time great players. But if I were betting on the win total for the Nets this season, it would be lower than what they're predicted to win. And I'll give you a nice little fun one. I would fade them in the beginning of the season. And here's why. Team's going to go easy on Durant. He's not going to play full minutes because he doesn't have to. This is a playoff team. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be there at the end. And I think there's some value in fading them because I think the Nets may prioritize some chemistry, some getting their players involved, some resting of Durant, but over winning early in the season. That's just my read, my take on it. And
Kyrie's never played a full season. His last, this is how many games he's played. He played 20 games last year, 67, 60, 72, 53, 75, 71, 59, 51. The guy can't stay healthy. He's missed more than half of his games in his career.
I might as well alienate everybody here by first saying Durant's overrated, but then also let me say,
well,
Kyrie,
let me ask you.
Kyrie is the one that won a championship for LeBron, so I might as well alienate the LeBron maniacs.
Let me ask you, you're a GM. Who do you rather have, Kawhi or Durant?
Kawhi in a second.
In a second. You don't even think. You don't even think. And I think that's a big deal. Durant scores. He's probably top 5 scorer of all time.
Yes.
No doubt. But, dude, intangibles matter. They just matter. And I'm with you. I love that call.
I mean, listen, why I say it's overrated? Overrated is an important thing. It's not saying that somebody's not good, because I'm not an idiot, right? Well, I kind of am an idiot, but Durant's obviously very good. But the preseason hype machine is so much on him. Oh, wait till he's in Brooklyn and he drops his first 50-point game in week 1. He's not having a 50-point game in week 1. I just don't see it. I don't think he's got enough minutes to do that, right? And while I'm sure it'll be great for headlines and stories and stuff like that, guy hasn't played in a year and a half, and he looked good. He looked good in preseason. That's preseason. He's playing against some scrubs, and nobody's really playing defense. It's like the Pro Bowl out there, right? You score a touchdown on every play. So we'll see what happens when the season starts. I'm sure they're going to be fine.
I have two questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
There. So first thing is, Kobe came off an Achilles, and it's the kiss of death. And I think it's fair to say no one works as hard as Kobe, and he wasn't his old self. So that's right. The first thing I would say. Second thing is, if you look at the odds, preseason odds for MVP, Kevin Durant is plus 900. Kawhi is plus 1350.
Yep.
That just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I think it's delusional. I think it's absolutely delusional to think Durant could come off an Achilles injury at the age of 31, 32 years old and win an MVP, and that GM and that team is even going to give him enough minutes to be in contention.
That's right.
I don't see it.
That's the hype. But that is, in my opinion, the very definition of overrated. So let me give you the other two. You ready? So if I were to tell you the hype machine is what gets me into the overrated, and remember, this is about the team, right? So my next two, if I didn't upset everybody already by saying Kyrie won LeBron his championship in Cleveland, and close, they'll be overrated next year. Remember, they still were on the borderline of making the playoffs and the whole deal. So you ready for this?
Suns.
Overrated. Atlanta Hawks.
Oh, wow.
I understand the excitement around the team, right? And it's hard to not feel good about Trae Young. I mean, you have to feel good about him, right? And
after looking at if you go to Lamim's page, I have a crush on Trae Young.
Yep. So
yep.
You do. You have a crush on him. Everybody has a crush on Trae Young, except he's great at 3-pointers. He's great at offense. He's also great at being, 22 and looking 65. So it's just a weird, skill that he has. So we talked about like win percentage. DraftKings has them winning 48% of their games. So they basically have them in an almost 500 team for the Atlanta Hawks. You know what their record was last year in the 67 games they were able to play? Because this is a team that hasn't played in 9 months plus now because of COVID. You know what their record was last year? So DraftKings is predicting them to be just a hair under 500 this year. They were 20-47 last year. 20-47, right? So really just take this, I'm not saying anything bad about Trae Young. And I love John Collins, and he's going to be playing for his lunch now because they didn't give him an extension. So this is a money year for him to be a restricted free agent at the end of the year. So this is a big year for him. He's got to show up. But are you telling me that, what's this, a 72-game season, right? So they played 67 last year. So to get to 500, 36 wins, let's just say 35 wins is what the DraftKings is predicting. Are you telling me that the offseason addition of Bogdanovic, Danilo Gallinari, and Rajon Rondo is going to allow this team to double their win total? They're going to add 15, 16 wins? No way. No way. Now I get it that we're looking for improvement from Trae Young and John Collins and Cam Reddish and all these great young players, but the East is a beast again.
Yep.
When we'll go through this, we'll do our NBA preview. That East is top heavy. And a lot of people are predicting the Hawks to potentially be in that, that play-in round, and they could potentially squeeze into there. But they're going to play some teams in the East that are just going to beat up on them. I'm sure they've gotten better, and I expect them to win more than 20 games this year. But the hype machine is real on the Hawks, and it has pushed the betting line and the expectation for Trae and these guys to be almost a 500 team. And just it's difficult to see them improving that much year over year. So that's why I consider them overrated. And you ready? If I haven't alienated our entire audience already by coming for Durant and the Nets and going for Trae Young and the Hawks, well, go ahead and get those DM thumbs ready, guys, because overrated this year are the Dallas Mavericks. Now, you ready? Before I go any further, let me say again, I'm not saying these teams are going to be bad, because the Mavericks are not going to be bad. Just that the hype has gotten a little out of control with these guys, okay? It's all hype, right? That's certainly the case with the team I mentioned, but more so, the biggest case for that is with the Mavericks, all right? Everybody's excited about Luka, and I'm excited about him too. I think he's going to have a great year. Everybody's – but here's the facts. He was already playing at a near MVP level last season. Already near MVP, already in the conversation of MVP. And what I hear people is say, oh, you know what, he might not win the MVP, but he'll be top 3 in the MVP. You're going to make an argument he was top 3 in the MVP as the season closed out last year and played real well in the bubble as well, right? The fact that he was already at that MVP level, I don't see any reason to believe that the Dallas team is going to be dramatically better than last year's team. What have they added? Kristaps he's not even ready for the first month, right? KP's not even playing first month, possibly longer. Yep. And without him, the ceiling, and remember, I'm just talking about like regular season wins, like what their team's going to be, where they're going to sit with situation. Their ceiling is capped without him. And the offseason moves, they swapped Seth Curry for Josh Richardson. I mean, does that get them any closer to being a championship contender? Especially now, I talked about the East being a beast, but just throw the Lakers and the Clippers out there. Are the Mavericks better than those two teams? I'm asking.
Nope. They have a very limited roster. We've talked about that quite a few times. The
Nuggets, which people are expecting real good things out of Nuggets, right? Their team take a step forward. You can make an argument. And if Dallas isn't better than them, okay, you make that argument. How about, I've seen a lot of people predicting Portland to take a huge step ahead, with their team. As far as I'm concerned, Dallas could be situated in exactly the same spot they were last year, and yet everybody's predicting them to be, a 2 seed, 3 seed, with Luka being the MVP, and them, significantly outperforming they did last year. I don't see it as a team, and that's not to say Luka is not great. Luka could average a 30-point triple double this year and win the MVP, but he was almost doing that last year. And what were the Mavericks? A 6 seed or 7 seed? I mean, what were they last year?
6 seed.
6 seed. So
I hear you. I'm with you.
So
what do you want to know? What do you want to know from me?
Nothing. I mean, I wanted you to disagree with me a little bit, but it sounds like I'm a genius again. So, what I want to know from you: give me a division. Give me one of the 6 divisions you want me to start with. You want me to go Southwest division?
I never remember like those names. Celtics Sixers. So is that Southwest?
Celtics Sixers. So are you telling me that you think that the Boston and Philadelphia are in the southwest portion of the United States? Or do we need to do a geography episode for you as well? No, the Celtics.
No, I just hate the division names. There's only Eastern and Western Conference.
So let's start then with the Atlantic Division. There are 6 divisions, guys. So the Atlantic Division in the East, right? It's going to be fun, right? This is a fun division, right? So let's dive right in, right? Every team, with the exception of the Knicks, is a legitimate postseason contender and can make a case for each one of them to be a favorite for the 2nd seed in the conference. 2nd seed in the conference, right? So dive in. Celtics. Who'd they add? Nice addition of Tristan Thompson. They got some decent draft. Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard. Who'd they lose? Gordon Hayward, Enes Kanter, nothing crazy, and they were 48-24 last year.
Wanamaker's a huge loss. Wanamaker's a really big loss.
Brad Wanamaker is a big loss.
He's very good, man. He's a solid. I think just something to look out for, if I could chime in here, is a really good second unit and a really good second unit point guard. If you look back in history at teams that perform really well, dude, a deep bench led by a proven point guard, a proven starter, or proven former starter is a big deal. That's 5, 6, 7, 10 wins that will add to your season. So just something to keep in mind. Yep.
I agree with you entirely. I'm not a Boston guy. I'm a New York guy. So, take that bias for what it's worth. But here's my outlook. I wrote this down. You ready? So I took notes on all these teams, what my thinking was, right? If you're a Celtic fan, you can downplay the loss of Gordon Hayward all you want. But reality is that's a tough loss. He is a good player. Now, not doesn't always stay healthy, as we've seen, but I think he's going to play tomorrow night. And one that the Celtics didn't really replace, I don't think. They definitely got better in the front court, swapping out Enes Kanter for Tristan Thompson. And just like we talked about the potential MVP come up of Luka, I mean, Jason Tatum's knocking on the door of stardom, legit stardom. He could really be talked about as one of the top players in the league if he isn't already. But really below the radar, Kemba's knee is still uncertain, and they're saying it's worse than people thought, right?
Wow.
That's a problem that could be offset by the Jeff Teague signing. Okay. They didn't really upgrade the bench, just like you're talking about, and shooting is their concern, and they're crossing their fingers that Aaron Nesmith, their draft, is a guy that's going to fix their shooting. But what did I just do?
Peyton Pritchard, if he gets some time, could score.
We got a little finger crossing, right? That Kemba's okay, and that if he's not, then maybe T can do something. Maybe Nesmith comes in. Maybe this, maybe that. Everything comes together. The Celtics, sure, could they make a push to be the top team in this division? 100%. But just feels like so many things have to fall in line for that to happen. And I think when you start off losing that Gordon Hayward glue-type player, starting the season off worse, I think, than you were last year, and with Kemba being injured, I'm going out here and saying that while they finished 40-32, they're fourth in the division. Fourth in the division, right? I didn't start with the Knicks.
How is that possible?
So you're ready for it. Because look at the division. The division is great. So the Nets addition, Bruce Brown, Landry Shamet, Jeff Green, subtractions. Who'd they lose? Jamal Crawford, okay, Lance Thomas, Garrett Temple, a whole bunch of other guys. It's tough to predict how they're going to fare, right? Because this was a 35-37 team last year. I think they'll be all right. I talked about overrated because I think that the books are predicting them to basically win 50 games, go 50-22, and be like one of these world-beating teams. While I don't think that's going to happen, I still think they're going to be very good. It's heavy potential. They could also be very dysfunctional. I like Steve Nash as a coach. I think he's going to squeeze enough out of these guys to win enough. Think about how much star power they have. It's, it could go really bad. But if it comes together for them and they use the talent that they already had there, I mean, Harris LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and these are guys who were carrying this team without Kyrie and without Durant.
That's the frustrating thing because I really like this Brooklyn Nets roster. Yep. I like those guys. Joe Harris is good.
Yeah, I'm a Joe Harris. Talk about a shooter, right? I mean, that's one of Ian's favorite guys. He likes Joe Harris. I actually think the Nets finished first in the division in 45-27. I just don't see them as a 50-win team, mostly because I think they take it easy in the beginning with Durant and those guys. I think they not really care about stats. I think they win this division, but the numbers you're expecting to see out of Durant and Kyrie, I think you don't see them just because I don't think they need to. Or I don't think they're going to have to do it. So let's go to the bottom of the division, the Knicks, right?
I actually think they start hot and fade.
Okay. Well, so you're in the opposite of me. You think that they kind of wear down because they're older. I think that probably their team management, their coach, and you name it, they probably understand that these guys have to be rested. And load management now is not one of those things that is like a dirty word anymore. I think they're going to be smart about it. And I think that Durant is not shy. I think he's going to come in and say, look, I don't want to play. Even if the team wants him to. I don't want to play those many minutes. I think he's going to take it easy. I think they're smart enough. So we'll see, though.
That's not why I think they come out like that.
So why?
I think they have a point to prove. I think what I notice about Kyrie and Durant is they're always worried about what other people are saying and what other people think about them. So I do think that matters. I think that's short term. But the interesting thing about that is that wears off. Eventually, no one really cares about you, and the season's long.
Yep.
And that early on motivation where it's like, screw everybody, I'm gonna sage the arena
from negative energy. That looks cool in the beginning, but then you get into the dark days of January and February. It's like no one really cares. It's just the season, you know.
I'm with you. So we'll see. We'll see. I still think they finished first in the division. So, but we'll see what happens. I mean, you're 100% correct. And like I said, this is a powder keg, man. You got those personalities there, like Kyrie, the lunatic. You know, he can convince the whole team the world's flat, and then they don't want to play on it anymore because the world's flat. Why should they play basketball? Knicks. They were last year. They will last again. I'll say this about the Knicks: they're better on paper than they were before, right? Obi Toppin falling to them in the draft is huge. They added Austin Rivers, but the Knicks are in an okay spot for a rebuilding team. Long ways off from actually competing, especially in this division. They find themselves in a real difficult division. They might not get blown out every night, but they're not going to win as many games either. So, they move from a 21-45 to basically a static 23-49. The Sixers, right?
This is a good the Knicks are a good team, in my opinion, to bet against the spread.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to get blown out. I think they stay in games, but they're not going to win them. I agree with that entirely. The Sixers added Danny Green, added Seth Curry, added Dwight Howard. I mean, added some decent draft picks. They lost Al Horford,
Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers. They lost some decent players, but nobody crazy. They might be the most fun team to watch, not just in this division, but in the whole league, right? Because they've had all the pieces from a talent perspective, but for some reason never had the ability to put it together, right? But now you got Morey coming in for basketball operations. You got Doc Rivers, as you mentioned, replacing Brett Brown as coach. They went out and got Danny Green and Seth Curry and Dwight Howard, who are all guys who have, experience. Danny Green, he's won championships the last 2 years, right? Dwight Howard just won. I mean, you would think that hopefully they add something into the clubhouse to say, all right, here's what happens. Here's that little missing ingredient to put all this offensive stuff together. Tough to predict what their ceiling is. But for a long time, the whole world seems to have been waiting for the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, duo to kind of break out. And it might be the time. I think they give the Nets a run for it, but they finished 43-29 and second in the division, which leaves just the Toronto Raptors, who, although their front court is not as good, they swapped out Ibaka and Marc Gasol for Aaron Baines and Alex Len. They're not really that different from what they were last year, and they're a good team. It's great that they re-signed Fred VanVleet. I mean, that he's just a real good player. Easy to sleep on these guys just because they're not there. And I know how much you love Mr. Lowry.
Love Mr. Michael Lowry.
You like Lowry too? What's your favorite thing about Lowry, Ian?
I like his hair.
You like that he flops, takes fouls? He's a flopper. Ian likes he's a flopper. No, you like Lowry? All right. So, but here's the deal, right? So easy to sleep on them. They don't have any stars. We're not talking about Sage. We're not talking about the duo of Embiid and Simmons coming out of nowhere. We're not talking about any, but it's the same team that took the Celtics to 7 games in the conference semifinals, 3 months ago? I mean, we're not that far removed from that, and it's basically the same team, right? So, sure, they could regress a little, and I'm expecting a little bit of that, but 41-31, finishing third in the division, and that rounds out your favorite Atlantic division. Let's see.
Let me pause real quick,
please.
Paige.
Yeah, go for it.
How much do you rate leadership and culture in sports and in basketball specifically?
So basketball, very, very high in basketball because you can't hide, right? You need somebody. There's 5 guys on the court, right? So a strong leader really, really is a huge thing in the sport. And we talked about this the end of last year when we saw LeBron take the reins and lead as opposed to Kawhi, who didn't. You know what I mean? And there is a huge difference there. And, you can make an argument that the Clippers are as good as the Lakers, maybe better, and they have the skills to match up with them, but they had nobody leading them. They had nobody, doing what needed to be done from a leader perspective. So go ahead.
We sometimes forget that professional sports are really 9 to 5 jobs. And I think that's something that people need to understand, that once the season starts, sure, the beginning, it's the hype. People are very excited. The players are excited. But after it just becomes monotonous. It's a job. You have to show up day after day after day after day and put in the work. And in my opinion, culture and leadership in those moments is when it's proven. When you understand, when everyone on the team and the organization understands this is our mission and this is why we work so hard, that's when good things happen. That's why I love Pat Riley. That's why you see that Miami Heat team
what a great
time
segue.
after time after time have results. Now, of course, it doesn't mean you're going to win the championship,
Mhm.
but it means that you're going to be in a position every year, right around the midseason mark, to make a move to get a player
That's right.
to put you over the top, because talent matters, but culture also matters. So I just wanted
I'm
to
with you.
stop there and have that
I knew
combo.
you'd go into the Heat with that one. So let's stay in the East and go to the Southeast Division, which I was
Which
really
is why
looking.
they don't want James Harden, by the way. Why?
Oh,
Why
yeah,
would they
they're
want
out.
them?
They're
That's
out on
that's
Harden. I wouldn't. Yeah, talk about ruining it. Talk about putting too much salt in the soup. It ruins the whole thing. You have great ingredients in there, man, but it doesn't matter. So South. This is my. I was looking for a reason to not have the Heat take this division. I really was. I was looking for it because that's it's almost like a cop out. But it's their division to lose, right? On paper, they're the team to beat in that division. In all likelihood, they're going to be the leader in that division, right? The rest of the division, though, is pretty good. And when I researched this, I was like, all right, I was looking for a reason to find an extra loss here or there for the Heat, an extra win for the other teams. But I'm glad they're not trading for Harden. But let's just assume that's a done thing, right? They're the favorites, right? They're the defending Eastern Conference champs. They're talented. They added Avery Bradley, which should help offset the loss of Jay Crowder, right? But really, what this comes down to, if Butler and Bam stay healthy and Hero does not regress, then you got one of the best teams in the NBA right here. I have them finishing 45-27, first in the division. Atlanta Hawks, 20-47 last year. Team on the rise. How good are they going to be? We talked about Trae Young. He is a star, but everybody's going to really point guards of his size. They can't do it on their own. They just can't. So they added Gallinari, Bogdanovich, Rondo. That's big for Young. It'll help him. The Rondo factor is great for Trae's development. Atlanta gets solid contributions from. Here's a play for you guys from the Cards, right? No one's looking at this. I actually sent a couple for consignment in to sell, and they didn't even get 99-cent bids. I'm gonna say his name wrong, but Okongwu, Okongwu, a center, the number 6 pick. Some people are saying that ultimately, when the chips are down here and we're able to look at this season, that he's going to be a better center, a better, more impactful player than Wiseman is, who was a number 2 pick, who's getting a lot more of the top billing.
Well, why do you think Clint Capella is not going to be the guy?
He's not a center. He's not a true center. I mean, he's good, but he's on the smaller side. This kid's more of a project. I don't see him coming out and doing great stuff in the beginning, but I have a feeling it's a name that you can pick up. Like I said, under 99 cents, people are not bidding on him.
Do you ever type in players' names, and on Wikipedia you see their nicknames? So I searched Clint Capella because I wanted to see is he a big man or a power forward? His nicknames are the Big Fella and the Swiss Roll.
Swiss Roll? I never heard that.
It's a fun little exercise. If you guys ever want to have a laugh, you just search a player's name and see what Wikipedia nicknames there are. I think people just put them in just to have a laugh.
Listen, the Hawks are good. I don't see them, finishing at 500 record. They'll be all right. But like I said, to come up from 20 and craziness, I don't see it happening. I think they'll probably finish third in the division, and they might win 33 games, 34 games. Leads us to who I think is going to finish second in the division. Although the Rui news is, I made a little bit of a joke about it, but it's actually bigger than than meets the eye. So Washington Wizards. I sometimes just got to see whether or not you're paying attention, man. So the Wizards, who they add?
Russell always Westbrook. Laugh at you jokes. You never laugh at mine, and it's on video now. People know. They're like, they even send me DMs. They're like, "Why doesn't Cage support your humor? You're the funniest dude in the world."
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Do you tell them because Cage tells you all the time, we can't pretend that you're both handsome and funny? So I give you the pretending that you're handsome. I'm just not going to give you pretending that you're funny.
That's right.
So there you go. It's loads of fun, folks.
I can't have a double.
No. There are so few of us out there that are both stunningly handsome and hilarious. We're an elite small club. So the Washington Wizards.
Sorry to threaten that club. I'm not. I am not worthy.
Yes, we're not worthy. So the Wizards lost John Wall, added Russell Westbrook. I love the Wizards this year. I'm 25-47. I think they finished second in the division. I think they're going to be all right. I think they're going to be about a 500 team. Maybe win 37 games. This Rui thing, I think, is an interesting thing. But Westbrook's clearly an upgrade over Wall. Wall, it's tough for Wall to stay on the floor. Some people argue he's been overrated since college. If he stays healthy, he's a very good player. But I think Westbrook and Bradley Beal will be able to function. That's two all NBA caliber players on the team, right? I mean, if they can function together, if they can figure out a way to make it work, and you're adding in my boy Denny, who they drafted, who, I think he's going to have a good year. I don't know what's going to happen here. Their bench is not the greatest thing on earth. Hopefully, Rui does not actually take the whole 3 weeks to get better with his eye. Hopefully, that's a quicker thing. But look, it's a rebuild, but they're taking steps in the right direction, and enough for them to finish second in this division.
Guys,
go ahead.
I don't know if you remember, the Warriors were down 3-1 to Westbrook and Durant.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying Bradley Beal is as good as Durant, but I'm saying Bradley Beal is a similar type player to Durant, and I think he complements Westbrook's skill set really well.
Yep.
So this team was my exceed expectations. I've said it all the way through. I love Westbrook's attitude. I love his passion. I think he's going to be great for the younger guys. I'm really excited to see how him and Beal mesh. And I think what's cool is he's played for Scott Brooks before, Westbrook has. I think that's going to be a seamless transition. So
we talked about the Magic already, so I won't spend too much time on them. They're one of my teams I think is going to surprise. They'll be a little better than they were last year. They were 33-40. I think that they also. So it's funny. Everyone in the bottom of this division, everyone who's not the Heat, has the potential to be a 500 team. All three of the other teams.
Okay, here's my question to you though.
Yep, go ahead.
If you watch modern day NBA, you really have to put up 110, 112 consistently. Yep. And I just don't see the Magic getting there. That's the issue. The thing about the NBA is there's just not enough defense. The rules don't facilitate defensive teams. You have to find a way to get to 112 points.
Yep.
And I don't know. I don't see Cole Anthony being that guy that gets them another 20 buckets.
Maybe so can I give you another name? I'll give you. So Cole
Sure.
Anthony doesn't have – I think he's probably a 15, 16-point game per game guy. I think Aaron Gordon actually stays healthy and takes his game forward. But I'm going to give you a name, and this is Luka Nation only name here, right? And I don't have a ton of his stuff, but I'm going to start grabbing some. And this is a perfect star stock guy, right?
Jonathan
so I'm
Isaac?
going to give you a name. No, he'll be good too. But here's why I like the Magic and why I think they're underrated, right? Because look at just another name you threw. But no, here's my name. You ready? Dwayne Bacon.
You love
Dwayne Bacon. I do, but
Michael Jordan loved him. Remember
his name is
Bacon,
college, right? Yeah. So I mean, talk about another guy who was great coming out of college, right? I mean, Dwayne Bacon. He is a guy. I'm telling you guys, who he's not going to score 30 points a game, but they're giving him minutes. He started all their games in their preseason, right? And he got lost in the Hornets. Devontae Graham came. He was Graham the year before. I mean, it's really funny the way that is, right? And they dropped into the G League for a second, and they scored like 40 points a game in the G League, so he clearly didn't belong there. But he was just a man without a home in Charlotte, right? There were too many guards. They just signed Rozier. He wasn't supplanting Devontae, and he found a home here in Orlando. And I'm telling you, I watched him play. He gets buckets. He scores. He finds a way to score. He plays the game quick. He plays it fast. And I think, your question is exactly why I like him, why I will buy his $2, $3, and $4 optic rookie cards and the red and yellow ones and all these other ones on Star Stock, right? Is because Orlando is looking for somebody to get buckets. They need to score 100 plus points per game to keep up in this NBA, and somebody like Bacon is gonna have to fill that role, and no one's expecting it. So that's kind of thing I look at.
I'll say two things. Michael Jordan, when this guy came out of college, was pretty high on him, and I think that's because he's built kind of like a stereotypical shooting guard, right? 6'6", broad shoulders, athletic. He has an all-around game, so I think Jordan maybe saw something similar in him. He's also went home. He's from Florida. Now he's playing in Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
He went to Florida State.
Right, Jonathan
That's
Isaac.
a big deal. That's a big deal. Some players like to be home. They don't these are young kids. Don't forget that. Their whole family's there, all their friends that they came up with. They're all going to be coming to the games. That's a big deal. So he's back home in Florida. If I think it'll be interesting. I think it's a good take, Cage.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, he's just people are always looking for like a out of the blue kind of guy. There's a lot of things that could work out well for him this year. And just to prove to you guys that I'm not just a homer, right? And I'm going after the Mavericks, not Luka. I'm going after the Hawks as overrated, not Trey. I think they're all going to be great, but I will tell you, I'm a Hornet fan. I love Devontae Graham. I think that they are just as bad, if not worse, than they were last year. Maybe we're not giving LaMelo Ball enough credit, but he's not ready to be the face of a franchise yet. And I don't even think he's ready to be a major contributor in the NBA. He's a highlight reel guy. He's made some great passes. He's also looked really bad on defense. His shot has a hitch. It's not as bad as his brother's, but he just in some games he looks like he can shoot. In some games he looks like he's just afraid to shoot. It's why they haven't started him. Are they going to rely on Gordon Hayward? Sure. Devontae Graham? Sure. Are they going to be relevant in this division? I don't think so. They have some good players. Sure, there are some good young players there, but it's weird, right? This team that I like to root for, and it's fun, and there are definitely going to be some highlight moments of Graham, Rozier, and LaMelo Ball during the season. You're going to see some fun, lots of three-pointer explosions and some real good point bursts, and
What about
wow,
alley-oops
to Bridges? You're going to definitely
Washington.
see that, right? But when you talk about a team, right? You talk about the team. This team is the opposite of the Heat, right? This is one where the sum is not greater than the parts, right? It's a lot of cool names. It's a lot of cool players. It's some alley-oops. It's some fun passes. It's Graham taking a whole bunch of threes. It's Rozier doing what he's doing. But it's not a team. It's a bunch of good names we threw out there. And maybe that changes, and maybe Gordon Hayward helps with that, and maybe they are a relevant team next year or the year after. But this is a team I have finishing last in the division, going 24 wins, 24 and 48.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
So on the other side of that, not so. I'll say I've been looking at the Hornets for a little while here. I think they're going to be an amazing first half team. So if you guys are against the spread bettors, I would track this first before jumping into it. But I think their first quarter and first half against the spread is going to be through the roof. I think they're the type of team that's going to be, if they play the Heat, for example, they're going to be leading the Heat 60-45 at halftime and end up losing that game. So I have them at a 500 team. But Cage, I think they're better than what you're giving them credit for, because there's some really solid players on that team. And I think players like LaMelo are underrated because in chess, and I don't want to go off too much on a rant here, but in chess, there's this concept of tempo. And I don't know if you know what that means, but it's essentially okay.
It's actually what I was going to talk about when you were done making your point, but go for it. Not chess, but tempo.
Tempo is, with one move, you could put the other team on the defense and also almost buy yourself a move. And good passers are able to do that. And I think LaMelo is going to get Devontae and Terry Rozier and Bridges a lot of good looks with his passing.
Well, I hope so. I don't see him even getting the minutes for it, because I think he's such a liability on defense right now. And maybe he gets better. I think he's such a liability on defense from what I've seen. I don't even think they can put him out there. And here's my problem. So I look at tempo and I say pace of play, right? In this NBA, you got to get up and down the floor, and you got to get more scoring opportunities. And I might be wrong about this, but remember, I try to look at the Hornets with rose-colored glasses, as they like to call it, right? I think they were the team with the least amount of offensive possession last year.
Okay.
That's
a huge stat.
And if they're not, they're definitely at the bottom of the league. I don't see anything in the addition of LaMelo, part-time player with bad defense, and Gordon Hayward that changes that. And there's we've just done the three divisions in the Eastern Conference. So it's funny, I just said that we were finished with the East, but obviously I messed that one up because I didn't even talk about the division that may have the team that comes out of the East. The division.
Your favorite player.
Your favorite
player.
My favorite player.
Victor Oladipo.
Oh, yeah, well, I do like Victor. Victor, I think, is going to be good, but I'm talking about Giannis and the Bucks. How do we leave them out? I mean, how do we leave this whole division out of my conversation and say I'm done with the East? Well, obviously, I'm not done with the East. We are going to get into the Central Division, right? And, I mean, when we talked about how the Eastern Conference was top-heavy, how do you talk about that? We talk about the Heat. How do we talk about, the Sixers and the Celtics, but how do we talk about it without talking about the Bucks, right? Let's talk about why the Bucks will come out of this division and very possibly come out of the conference again. I mean, you got that whole contract thing out of the way. I mean, I think it's the Eastern Conference is the Bucks to lose. They got a lot of competition this year, more than in the past. And let's talk about in this division why the Pacers are going to be consistent all season, but have an early playoff exit like they usually do. So Bucks, who they add? Drew Holiday, huge. Bobby Portis going to be huge. Torrey Craig, DJ Augustin, right? Had a decent draft. And they lost some names, right? They lost Robin Lopez, Encino Man, Cro-Magnon, Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, Wesley Matthews. But the draft was irrelevant, right? They shelled out their picks and brought in Drew Holiday, replaced Eric Bledsoe. I think I speak for you. That's an upgrade.
Huge.
That's an upgrade, right? So,
Eric Bledsoe is maybe top 5 lowest IQ players I've ever seen play the game.
So you think that might be one of the things that helped them, keep Giannis? That they're trying to build up around them for right now? I mean, they basically gave up their draft picks for, to bring in Drew Holiday.
Giannis wasn't going anywhere. A human being's most, something we crave more than anything is to be consistent with our word. And he's been saying he's a man of his word. He's a loyal guy. So I don't think he was going anywhere. I think adding Drew Holiday and shoring up the bench is going to put them over the top. I think they're coming out of the East pretty easily. I actually think they might sweep through the playoffs. I think they're that good. You guys need to realize Giannis is head and shoulders better than every other player in the NBA, minus LeBron maybe. So,
right. And Giannis might take a step forward this year, and LeBron might take a step back just because of all the time. So, and listen, people sleep on the Bucks. They've had the best regular season record the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
I think they do it again. Didn't amount to a title that they expect, but that's what they expect this time, right? The title's this year. And what they do, right, to improve around them, they brought in Forbes, who's a sharpshooter. You need that. You always have to have that John Paxson, that Steve Kerr on the outside shooting in the sharpshooter. That's an important little role, right? They improved defensively, bringing in Torrey Craig, another veteran guard with DJ Augustin. A lot of new faces, a lot of support for him and Middleton. Let's see, if it takes them a while to mesh. I think they finished first in the division, win 51, 52 games. The Bulls.
Yep. And last thing, just real quick.
Yeah, please.
I think the bubble hurt the Bucks more than any other team last year. The Bucks were the oldest team. They had families. Being away from your family for 6-8 weeks, that's a long time. So I think the bubble, mention,
right, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That was the scene of a lot of the civil unrest that was going on. George Hill was one of the more outspoken people about how they shouldn't even be in the bubble. They should be back home, using their influence there. So there were a lot of other things going on. So I feel you about the bubble. I understand that, and I agree that was a huge impact. And they had a lot of other things going on where it's unfortunate. They weren't able to take advantage of the long season and play. I don't think the East played out the way it would have had they not, been in the bubble.
Bulls.
Interesting stuff, right? Bulls.
Let me ask you something about the Bulls. Zach LaVine,
man.
A superstar on the verge of being a superstar.
So, I like Zach LaVine. So many people out there are on the Kobe White train. They're all Kobe White. I never understood this, but I think I saw the other day that Kobe White rookie silvers, not number, just rookie silver PSA 10s are $1,000 card now. That's amazing to me. That is the epitome of height.
Yep.
And while I'm sure he'll be pretty good, right? I'm sure he'll be fine. They are not a good defensive team. They were not a good defensive team last year, and I think they got worse than they were last year. They lost Chris Dunn, right? Now, are you excited? I always leave the coach conversation to you. Are you excited to bring on the Billy Donovan era in Chicago? Does that do anything for you?
They hated Jim Boylan so much that it's maybe an upgrade just the fact that he's gone. Dude, Tyrants suck. No one likes to just be talked down to all the time. And I'm someone that, when I get a little bit upset, I'll chew your ear off. But, I'll come back and I'll be like, yo, we're in this together. Let's figure this out. The players hated him. So I just think it's addition by subtraction. And Billy Donovan did some interesting things with that OKC team. And I would argue they overperformed. So,
yep. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, here's the Bulls, right? They lost Dunn, new coach. Of the three bottom feeders of the division, they're the better of the three, I think.
What I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to jump in. Sorry. What I'm most disappointed about is actually Lauri Markkanen. So I have a Finnish friend, and so we've been watching this guy forever. He's like the guy from Finland, and his I was going to say freshman year, his rookie season, he was really good. He was putting up 20 and 10 pretty consistently. He was kind of an unheralded, like, where did this guy come from? And he's taken a severe step back. So I'm a little bit disappointed with that because they need him. They need that guy.
Well, I don't like Finland, but you know what I do like? I like Sweden. Check out this humongous bag of Swedish fish that I'm slamming right now. Yeah, Swedish fish. So I actually have a different take on Lauri Markkanen. He has taken a step back. I think he has a great year this year because he's playing for his breakfast, kind of like we saw with John Collins in Atlanta. You know, Markkanen was not given a contract going into the season, so he'll be another restricted free agent at the end of this year. So he's playing for his money. So I do expect him to do well. But can Wendell Carter Jr. and Otto Porter Jr., can the junior duo stay healthy? They haven't been able to, stay healthy enough to contribute alongside, Zach LaVine and Kobe White and all those guys that are supposed to be in Lauri Markkanen. For them to be really competitive, every one of them has to take a big jump. I just don't see it. I am not bought into the Kobe White hype train yet, so I might as well just piss off everybody out there. I mean, I'm going to start taking pot shots at Michael Porter Jr. soon when we get over to the West, and then just everyone will hate me. But
guys, if I were you guys, I would pause right here. Maybe it's a little bit too late for it, but how many plays have we given that have 2X'd? And they were NBA plays that we said, hey, buy Kobe White, buy Michael Porter Jr. Silver. I mean, I just wanted to give myself a little pat on the back. Keep going, Kate. Sometimes.
Pat on the back for you. Kobe White was definitely one of your picks. I think the Bulls finished third in the division, go 27-45. Speaking of garbage, how about the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I would be selling those. I would be selling those hype plays that we gave you between the time the bubble finished and now. Like when I said Michael Porter Jr. Silvers, they're $600, $650. I think now they're over 1,000.
Yep.
I would just unload them and have a pile of cash sitting to make some in-season moves. That's how I would play it.
I agree. So the Cavs, right? Salary cap problems last season when they traded for a guy I happen to like, but has no real cardboard relevance. Our boy Andre Drummond. Got a crowded front court. You got Kevin Love, Larry Nance Jr., Andre Drummond, who all sound like good names. Now throwing in JaVale McGee, right? I mean, what are they doing? If you combine their front court with, say, the Hornets backcourt, you might have something here. You might have a team that might not finish in the bottom like both of these two teams are going to. Amazing stuff. Colin Sexton's numbers improved season over season. But this is a team. It's like, this is one of these rudderless ships, right? What direction are they going? Where are they going with this? What are they doing? I think really the biggest story coming out of Cleveland this year is what's going to happen with Drummond and Love and their contracts during the season. Are they able to move them because they're expiring contracts? Like, what are they going to do? This team is not going to have much relevance. They're going to finish last in the division, win maybe 22 games, which is slightly better than they were last year.
Kevin Love to the Clippers would be really interesting.
Interesting, right? Yeah, that could be nice. Somebody who knows LeBron pretty well too, right?
Kevin Love is an interesting cat. Like he's really good, but he's so quiet, So you kind of forget that he's even around.
Actually, a dog person. His dog's name is Vestry. So the Detroit Pistons, 20-46 record last year. They lost Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown, and Christian Wood. Added a whole bunch of folks. They were pretty busy this offseason, right? And they had a good draft. I like Killian Hayes. They took him number 7. He'll be a good two-way option. They have Sadiq Bey was a nice late, first-round pick for them as well.
Villanova guy.
And a lot of stuff, right? Especially when you add another guy that's real hype going around him. But for some reason, even with all the hype, his prices have managed to stay below that Kobe White, Tyler Hero, all those other crazy hyperbolic, parabolic, I think is the right word, these stratospheric rises for these guys. Sekou Doumbouya is good. But the Pistons, what does it come down to? The health of Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin, right? I mean, that's it, right? If they can stay healthy and play, they'll be all right.
You mean Blake Williamson? Zion Griffin?
Zion Griffin. I know that, man.
I want to ask our Luca Nation, and I want to ask you a question too.
Yep.
For someone who's as well liked as Derrick Rose,
yep.
Why do you think he doesn't get a lot of hobby love?
Because he plays like a 6-man role, and he's very, very good, and he's very, well thought of, and is a great role player. But you know who kind of role he has right now? Another guy who gets no hobby love, Lou Williams. You know what I mean? The guy can score. He's got some great stuff. He's fast. He can, play some defense and whatnot. But, Derrick Rose, I'd love the guy to continue to play at a high clip and just compile some numbers, because if not, he will be the answer to a trivia question from now until the end of time. And it is, tell me the NBA player who won the MVP award of the NBA and did not make the Hall of Fame. Because NBA has one MVP. It's not this MVP in 2 different leagues. And, in baseball, you can have an MVP who just comes out of nowhere one year and has a great year and then fizzles out. But in the NBA, where there's 5 guys per team and everybody is awesome, right? 5 starters per team and everyone's awesome. When you win the MVP in the NBA, chances are you're going into the Hall of Fame. And Derrick Rose, he was
over LeBron, right? You win the MVP over LeBron.
Yeah,
you should be a big deal. You're absolutely right.
So and right now he's. I mean, I think it would be a stretch to say he's a Hall of Famer right now. Like I said, I root for him personally, but he'll be.
We're going to start a campaign. It's going to be Matthew Stafford, Derrick Rose for Hall of Fame.
You might as well. It's funny that they're both in Detroit. So interesting stuff.
Sponsored by StockX. Just kidding.
Sponsored by Detroit. So the Detroit something or other. But yeah, so I mean, I like those guys, but they're both on the wrong side of 30. I'm on the wrong side of 40, so can't really call them old. But for basketball, they're not. They're in the tail ends of their career. Like I said, I think they finished 5th. Win about 23 games. The Pacers, right? Lost TJ Leaf, which is it's a loss you don't want to have, right? But this is a team people don't realize. 5-year playoff streak, but also a 5-year first-round exit streak, which, I mean, we want to talk about going and pumping the brakes, talking, good, we made the playoffs 5 straight years, and boom, we can't get out of the first round. Reminds me of Carmelo's old Nuggets teams, right? TJ Warren, huge bubble player, right? Is he going to build on that performance? Is he going to disappear? Malcolm Brogdon, it's a pick I gave guys, right? I mean, he's shaping up to be a real good player, right? Those 2 guys, you pair him up with Miles Turner, Victor Oladipo, who stayed with the team, didn't get traded. They're healthy, that hasn't happened for Oladipo in a while. Are they going to be the 4 seed in the East? I think they finished 2nd in this division with a very respectable 42-30 record, and that rounds out the Central Division, which is the Bucks. I mean, unless something crazy happens, this is the Bucks division. Which brings us over to the West. I'm gonna try to speed this up a little. This is a long episode. We're trying to do a little preview on it, but also, guys, if you didn't listen to this, there's some cool card plays in there. Lauri Markkanen, we talked about him. I think he's gonna have a good year this year because he's playing for his contract. John Collins, we recommended him also. Dwayne Bacon, we talked about. The Okongwu, the number 6 pick for the Hawks, as a 99-cent or cheaper play. There are a lot of card plays that we're trying to give here as well. So what do you think? You want to go ahead? What were we saying?
The guy have a more hype prospect.
Losing for a second.
Can I just real quick, and you'll get into the West?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw a cool post this morning on Instagram, and it compared the statistical jump that players had in their 3rd year versus their 2nd, and 3rd-year players clearly outperform 2nd-year players. So, I'll give you the example of Darius Garland versus Colin Sexton as a good example. I would be really taking a look at some 3rd-year players that could take that next leap versus looking at guys like Kobe White, because that sophomore slump is a real thing.
like it. Although we saw some really powerful sophomore performances last year, when maybe it was an abbreviated season, but Michael Porter Jr. was a sophomore, had a great year. Devontae Graham came out of nowhere as a sophomore. Trey and Luca were great sophomores. Maybe
Luca
that's the
is not a
exception
sophomore. I'm gonna put that on record
for the NBA, but that's fine. So we on Michael Porter Jr. Let's go and talk about the Northwest Division, right? So
and Michael Porter Jr. was a rookie last year, but sure.
No,
not officially, but you know what I'm saying.
A lot of fun, a lot of competition in this division. Let's talk about the Denver Nuggets, right? Adding RJ Hampton. Who they lose?
Love
Nobody crazy. Torrey Craig, Noah Vonleh. The Nuggets should be very, very good this year, right? They topped the division and third in the Western Conference last season. Nothing crazy. The core group from their run to the Western Conference Finals in September, which it's amazing, only a couple months ago, it's the same core. They are going to be, I believe, first in this division, although they're definitely going to be challenged. This is a fun division, and there's a lot of fun going on in the West. They're going to have some real challenges from Utah, from Portland, nipping at their heels. I think they win about 46 games and finish first in this division.
Wow.
Brings me to our friends, Oklahoma City Thunder. Go ahead.
You have to ask the question.
Go ahead.
How did Michael Porter Jr. gel with Jokic and Murray? That's a huge topic, right? Like he's
finally a starter, right?
He's going to start.
Right? So I think there will be a buying opportunity for Michael Porter Jr. a couple weeks into the season. Because two things. Number one, I think his cards have really flown out of control. And number two, I think human nature is going to set in with him. When he was the microwave, when he was coming off the bench and he was in there with the second unit and him, he was supposed to score. Like he was supposed to be the offense run through him. He was supposed to put up the numbers. He was supposed to put up as many shots as he could. I believe as the younger player with Jokic and Murray and those guys out there, I think, like I said, human nature-wise, I think he's not going to want to look greedy in the beginning. I think he's going to fall into this trap, really, of being a little more complacent out there, not looking for a shot, not looking for his teammates to rely on him because they're not going to, right? Whereas when you're out there with the second unit and you're really a first unit player, all the scoring should run through you. It's not going to. And I think he's going to kind of get lost in it a little bit. And I think that changes. I think the coach probably does a good job. I think, Murray, he's great, and Jokic is great, but I think they're a good team. I think they'll be vocal enough with him and tell him, look, you're not the second squad here now. You got to look for your shot. You got to look for your game. I think you're going to see, there's a very specific prediction, obviously, but I think you're going to see him, I don't want to say struggle, but be a little more passive as they open the season as a first time, because I think he's had a lot of weird exposure. He was hot and then cold. He had the backpack presser. He knows there's hype around him. And I think these guys, they're acutely aware of what's going on. And I think he's fearful of, being looked at as a ball hog. I really do. And that's my take on Michael Porter Jr. I think he's going to start off slow on purpose. What do you think?
I think I think it depends on how he meshes with that team. It depends on the off-season work. There hasn't been a lot of time for them to really work on some sets and plays. Jokic and Murray are notorious for just running basic pick and rolls. I talked about that during the bubble. And If they could get Michael Porter Jr. involved, great, because otherwise it's going to be a pick and roll. And then you're going to have this one guy who's just playing iso ball, and they're not going to gel really well. And I think they could actually take a step back as a team. So I agree. I would wait a few weeks to see how they're gelling. And if he's really doing a good job and they figured it out, just catch the uptrend, right?
Yep. Well, that's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be a little down, and then they'll figure it out. That's kind of so. The Thunder. Talk about a team that looks different from a few months ago when they ended. No more Chris Paul, no more Steven Adams, no more Danilo Gallinari, no more Nerlens Noel. None of these guys, right? They picked up some big first-round draft picks, but lost a lot of talent to get those picks. Obviously, that's their design, right? It's sad, right? Because they're going to be significantly worse than they were last year when they were the number 5 team in the West. I guess they're hoping for a rebuild / future run with all these young guys. And, I have them fifth in this division, winning 25 games. You could see some offensive performances out of somebody like, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander or Darius Baisley, just because there's nobody else there. And somebody's got to score the points, right? So, they could be offensive candidates to put up good stats just on a team that is just not that good. But yeah, I have them finishing last. A fun team who finished second in this division last year, Utah Jazz. Just like the Nuggets, they're bringing back basically their core. They're bringing back almost everybody who they had. And the Jazz was only 2 games behind Denver last season. And look, what they do, they re-signed Donovan Mitchell and Jordan Clarkson. I think they're going to be basically the same as they were last year. They didn't do anything crazy, and I think they just finished slightly behind the Nuggets again. I think they finished second. They have 43 wins, just edging out our next team, the Trailblazers, who I think have 42 wins. They added Robert Covington. They added Enes Kanter. And, I love the Blazers, but for some reason, it seems like they do just enough to just get close, right? Like, how good did they look in the bubble last year getting into there? But why were they in that spot to begin with? This team with all the talent that's there, they shouldn't have been fighting for their, playoff lives there in the bubble. They should have been in there, anyway, right? I like that they added Kanter, and they got some depth at center, and they got Covington is good on both the offensive and defensive side. They're a better and well-rounded team. And Dame, I think people are not talking about him, but that's a sleeper pick, a little bold prediction, sleeper pick, value for the money for MVP this year. I like Lillard. I think he's great. And, he has the ability to go on a 5, 7, or 10 game stretch that nobody else can put up the numbers that he puts up. I just don't know what he can do for a full season. And this division that they're in, it is really good fundamental teams, right? And it's just tough that Portland happens to be in the same division as both the Jazz and the Nuggets, who I think are just a hair better than them. And it brings us to a team that I think is a little bit better than people are giving them credit for, a team that I think will finish around 500 this year, which is not getting them into the playoffs and putting them fourth in this very difficult division, and that's the Timberwolves. They're not going to be the best, but they're definitely not going to be the worst, right? They only had 19 wins last year, so we're looking up. We talked about them in the very beginning of the episode, so you guys know everything I'm doing. But their wins will come outside this division because they're just not as good as the Nuggets, the Jazz, and the Trailblazers. But it's just like we talked about the Knicks. This is a team that I would bet with the spread, right? I'd bet them to cover spreads. They might not win the games, but they're not going to get blown out. And there is your what were we in? Northwest, I think we started with, right? We started with the Northwest division. So we can go to the Pacific now if you like, and that'll leave us with just the Southwest. The Pacific division. This is your leader in the clubhouse, right? Your current reigning champs, your Los Angeles Lakers, the favorite to win now. I think as of this morning, they were 11-4 were their betting odds on them repeating and winning. And they didn't sit down and say, all right, LeBron, you won your championship, the heck with it. They sat there and they said, you know what, you might only have one more shot at this. Let's build around you. They gave him a good supporting cast, right? They brought in Dennis Schroeder, they brought in Montrezl Harrell, Wesley Matthews, re-signed Morris and KCP. And if you believe all of the hype out there right now, they got Talon Horton Tucker, who's going to be the most improved player this year, right? I mean, do the Chickens have Lawrence Talents? They do if they play for the Lakers. So, look, they lost some people, but they got better, and they're the champs.
Got a lot
so when the
better.
champs get better, right? When the champs get better, I mean, what are you supposed to say, right? Harrell, 6th year, averaged almost 19 points and 7 rebounds, 6th Man of the Year award. Schroeder's an upgrade over what they have with Rondo. Wesley Matthews, who I mentioned, he's going to take that Danny Green role, I think. And I mean, look, they have the 2 best players in the NBA. They have LeBron and they have, Anthony Davis. No offense to Giannis, but win one first before I put you in that category. And Ian and I were watching, kind of like an NBA show today, and you remember that shot that Anthony Davis hit, that buzzer beater against the Nuggets. I mean, they might not have won if not for that. You know what I mean? Like, that was like a huge turning point. You know what I mean? They were about to go down in that series. I mean, what's up?
It gave them a little confidence. I think it gave AD a little bit of confidence too. I think the big difference between AD and Giannis is AD's a more polished offensive player. He's still a freak on defense. Giannis is a more polished competitor and a defensive player. But like I've said a few times, in the NBA, offense wins. And I'll say Rob Pelinka is the best GM in the NBA, and I would put David Griffin as number 2.
Yeah, what do they do? Executives of the year, right? I mean, that's Pelinka who's definitely going to win it.
Well, he was groomed by Kobe. Like he was Kobe's best friend. So, I mean, who knows how many conversations they had about, what does it take to build a winning culture? Kobe always talks about, organizations have more than one star. It's not Kobe and that's it for the Lakers. Like you need to bring stars. So, I mean, Magic Johnson, I guess, was the one that brought LeBron there, but Pelinka surrounded him with AD and a ton of other guys. So
he knows what he has, right? He has LeBron, and LeBron has a shelf life, right? I mean, how old is he? 35, 36? I mean, how much longer does he have, right? Right. So he knows what he has.
I think he's gonna play into his 40s, but I think he has 3 more years.
Okay, so 3 years, right? So he didn't take this year off after winning a championship. He took a championship team and said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to build a team around them. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that people will probably take a little less to come play with a champ, win a championship, play with LeBron, you name it. And, a lot of teams don't do that. A lot of teams, they're talking about salary caps, or they're talking about rebuilding years. And the Lakers didn't do that. A lot of teams win that one championship and feel like they don't owe the fans or they don't owe anybody to try to go for it a second time. So, give them some credit. That brings us to the Clippers, right? Clippers, I think, are going to be just a hair below. I think the Lakers win 52. I think the Clippers win 50. Nice addition of Luke Kennard. I think he's a good player. I don't think it makes up for the loss of Harold, but it is what it is, right? It's an interesting thing, right? They brought in Serge Ibaka, who if he plays well, could be a nice fit for that team. Overall, I would say Lakers got better, Clippers got slightly worse. I like the Luke Kennard thing, right? I mean, this is a first rounder out of Duke, big upside for these guys. Could be a nice compliment to Paul George and Kawhi. Does anybody have more to prove this year than Paul George, though? What's your take? Paul George.
I don't like that he keeps putting targets on his back with some nonsense. Like, hey, I owe the Clippers a championship. I think that's foolish. I don't have much of a take on Paul George. I really don't.
What is he supposed to say, right? And that I don't mind it because, look, if he goes out there and they happen to win a championship, whether it's by his doing or Kawhi, puts him on his back and wins a championship, he can say, hey, I said I owed it to him and I got it. If they don't win it, what's he supposed to say? You know what I mean? If they don't win, okay, shit, I failed. I mean, he already was abysmal in the bubble. You got playoff Paul George is looking pretty horrible. So I don't mind that. That's all athletes do.
I don't get the promise of some future event. Like I just don't. That's not my style. But I mean, dude, everyone does what they want to do. But I would say, like, guys, like, just so you know, like, I took this loss as personally as you guys did, and I'm here putting in the work because I want to be the best I can be for next season to bring a championship home for you guys. That to me feels more real than some kind of ambiguous thing like, I owe you guys this championship. Like, okay, I don't know. I could be wrong. That's my only take on Paul George. I think they're going to be really I think they're going to be really good, but I think they're just a notch below the Lakers. But is Jerry West still the GM?
I don't know.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some mid-season moves that the Clippers make.
We talk about different divisions, right? Listen, I mean, there's definitely going to be people out there, right? There's plenty of people out there that they can grab mid-season to really help them out. You talked about that. Kevin Love was a name you mentioned, right? You definitely see that happening. Talk about a top-heavy division there. I mean, a lot of people love this next team, but I can't see them, no matter what they did, and they made some nice moves, I can't see them dethroning either of those LA teams. We're talking about the Phoenix Suns, right? Talk about a team that couldn't have done better in the bubble than they did. They went 8-0 and then missed the postseason. Then they went out and traded for Chris Paul, right? Which is, an impressive thing, right? So you got Chris Paul and Devin Booker in the backcourt. A lot of people are saying that, DeAndre Ayton is really going to benefit from Paul's arrival. And maybe Booker scores more because he's able to play off ball. I am not sold on Booker. I like him. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be fine. I just think that right now, the way that his cards are priced, and that's what I look at here, right? The way his cards are priced, he's got to go out there and average 30 points a game just to justify the pricing on his cards right now. And that's a tough thing to ask, right? They also grabbed Jay Crowder, which is a nice thing for them. But ultimately, in this division, with both of the LA teams on top, even though all the moves the Suns did, I see them as a 44-win team, finishing third in their division. Now, Golden State really had high hopes for these guys when Clay was going to be there. And you got the Splash Brothers coming back, and they had the number 2 pick, and they went out there and they signed, Kelly Oubre, right? But Klay Thompson out for the whole season. And I just saw come across the news this morning that Draymond Green's not playing tonight, so he's not starting the season healthy either. Kelly Oubre, I like him. We gave him as a pick. If you guys haven't gone out and bought some of his Prism rookie cards for an in-season flip, you should, because he will have a stretch where he's going to score some points and look good, just because, it can't just be Steph. So there'll be an opportunity for you to sell those cards for more than they're going for right now. Curry remains an MVP candidate, and a starting 5 of Curry, Wiggins, Oubre, Green, and Wiseman, when they're all healthy and when they're all out there and playing, has a lot of potential. But this is a tough division, and even winning what I think they're going to win 41 games and make the playoffs still puts them 4th in this division. Do you believe that? I mean, that's crazy to think teams going to go out there and go 41-31, I think, somewhere in that range, and be 4th in this division. Pretty crazy. And that leaves, unfortunately, somebody's got to finish 5th and take the brunt of all those losses. That leaves the Sacramento Kings. There's a guy on this team that I think is a play for this year. You want to talk about your 3rd-year player, last year, right? So it's I watched some of the preseason games with him. He cut his hair. It was almost unrecognizable. He is so fast. I'm talking about De'Aaron Fox, right? And, I mean, he is all they have. I mean, that's really it, right? They got worse than their 31-41 they were last year because they lost Bogdanovich, who signed with the Hawks, right? I mean, they brought Hassan Whiteside back. Tyrese Halliburton's a nice rookie, right? But, I mean, this is a team. It's De'Aaron Fox, blowing by people on the drive as much as he can and scoring as many points as he can. But the other teams all seem to get better. Golden State can't get much worse than they were last year, but all these other teams get better. And, I mean, I see Sacramento finishing last and winning maybe 25, 26 games max. But I do like De'Aaron Fox. I think, there are a couple of people out there who are going to be their team's only weapons, sort of like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and maybe Darius Baisley if he turns into something over in Oklahoma City. But at least there's one division.
I used to watch Drake and Josh with my little sister.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kings,
I'm losing you, man. You watch something? You watch something with your sister?
I'm sorry.
What'd you watch? Drake?
Drake and Josh. That used to be a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Drake and Josh.
And you watch it with your sister?
And the Kings, the Kings social media team, they did a great job. They're like, who beat you guys? Who was it? Who did it? And I was like, it was this guy named Guy and this other guy named Buddy.
Buddy Hield.
All right, keep going.
Southwest Division gives us the Luka division, right? So Dallas added Josh Richardson, lost Seth Curry, a couple of other small moves here and there. They had 43 wins last year, right? They got to the playoffs after missing it for 3 years. MVP candidate, but KP is he's not healthy. He's not going to play in the beginning of the season, which just seems to be a recurring thing, right? It's interesting, right? The Clippers roughed up Luka in the first round. And that really is, that's kind of like the strategy, I think, right? They're going to be physical with him. They're not just going to let him stand there and do what he wants, let him drive, let him shoot. They're going to be physical with him, right? And, I think you could argue that James Johnson was a signing that was in response to that, right? I mean, he mixes it up physically. And I think, if Marcus Morris tries to play the style of game he did in the playoffs last year, maybe they have Johnson come in and use all 6 of his fouls in one play. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's an interesting thing, right? So the Mavericks, they need to get a little tougher, got Josh Richardson. I think that's a step down. I mean, Seth Curry, he's not his brother, but I watched enough games of Dallas last year to know that Seth Curry was a real good contributor to that team, right? I know that they picked this Terrell Terry in the second round, and they're hoping that he can shoot the way that, make up for some of what Curry had. But, I like Dallas. The pieces are there for them to make a run in the Western Conference. And, it's going to be interesting to see where they end up. I think that they improved slightly from what they did last year, and they are, they're the team to beat in this division. We go to Houston, who was our one of the teams I mentioned as not as bad as they were, right? But I mean, you lose Russell Westbrook and Covington. It's great that they brought John Wall in, but this team is just, I mean, it's interesting, right? And if the best thing you say about a team is they're not going to be as bad as people think they're going to be, that's usually not that good for, their overall scenario. The Harden situation is going to hang over their head the whole year, right? We talked about Houston. It's going to be interesting. And who knows what's going to wind up happening there. How about the Memphis Grizzlies? What do you think? Are you sold on Ja?
Yeah, for sure.
So they finished 9th in the Western Conference last year, and they were a nice surprise. I mean, I think the bubble really screwed them. I think if you didn't have the bubble, they would have finished with that 8 seed. I think they would have been the playoff team that was there, right? The difference this year is that they are not sneaking up on anybody, right? They know Ja's a star. They know the rest of the Memphis team. We've talked about them. We've given plays of several Memphis guys, and it's Jaren Jackson Jr., a great player. Brandon Clark. We talk about these guys. I mean, Jackson's going to miss a little bit of time in the beginning of the year, but I don't know what these guys will do. There are a lot of names, a lot of young names, and this is one of those teams where they got a bunch of stars, they got a bunch of great players, but I look at it the same way you talk about the Heat, how they come together and play as a team. This team will only go as far as if they're able to come together. They got a lot of players, got a lot of people who can do a lot of great things on the court, but I don't know whether or not they have the ability to kind of gel and play as a team, and that's the big difference. I actually think this team might be taking a step backwards this year, and I don't think they are, a playoff team. That gives us.
I think they're going to finish with a better record than the Dallas Mavs.
Really? You think better than the Mavericks? Talk to me.
Yep.
Tell me, because we're different here. We're definitely different.
They have a better roster, and I've watched Josh since his Murray State days. Man, the guy has a chip on his shoulder. I love guys that have chips on their shoulder and something to prove. Dude, he's good, man. I think Ja is a Russell Westbrook with a higher basketball IQ. That's how I see him. I think if he has a consistent jump shot, he's gonna be tough, man. He's really good. I think he's super underrated. Just from a sports card perspective, and I sold his Prism card because I graded it and I was in profit. But to me, it doesn't make any sense to put Zion in the same conversation as Ja. The fact that Zion was even in the Rookie of the Year conversation with Ja was crazy because, dude, Ja literally single-handedly turned that franchise around, and he's 21 years old. He has a really promising future, and I think after the season, he's going to be in the same breath as Trae Young, Luka, because he's someone you could build an entire organization around. So, yeah, I'm high on Ja, and I'm high on the Memphis Grizzlies.
I like Ja. I don't put him in the same category as Trae and Luka yet. I think his game is built on athleticism, and there are more players than I can name right now who were athletes and were athletic, and they didn't develop their game. Now, all signs point to him working on his craft and developing a better jump shot and developing a 3-point shot, and I'm sure it'll come. Until I see that, I'm not as high on Ja. I have every reason to believe he will be great.
What you're saying is, does he have that at the clip that Trey and Luka have? Because if he's able to really have a knockdown 3-pointer and a knockdown mid-range game, his athleticism is off the charts.
Correct.
Yep.
So I think it's Trey and Luka don't have that high flying athleticism that Ja has, so they have to work on their other parts of their game because they can't rely on the athleticism. Ja doesn't have to. He can get by at least temporarily on just pure, unadulterated, high-flying athleticism. Poster dunks, you name it, drives to the basket. He doesn't have to do anything else. As long as he has the threat of a jump shot, he can blow past you.
Can I touch athleticism? Because I think sometimes we think of athleticism, but it needs to be broken into 2 categories. It's how quick is your first step, and can you elevate and finish at the rim? People don't realize those are 2 mutually exclusive things, right? You could finish at the rim, but be kind of slow. Or you can be quick, but you can't finish at the rim. I think from what I've seen, Ja is as quick, not as fast, as De'Aaron Fox, and he finishes at the rim like Russ did. And I think that's a rare combination. And he's a better shooter than De'Aaron Fox as well.
Oh, definitely. But we're not comparing him to De'Aaron Fox. We're comparing him to Luka and those guys. And my point only is there are usually 2 types of players. The ones that are athletic and rely on their athleticism and don't work on the rest of their game, or there are ones that realize that they have to work on their game because their athleticism won't always be there. And I'm curious to see which way because he doesn't have to work on anything now.
So watching Ja from Murray State, I watched him in high school a bit. Also, by the way, he's a South Carolina cat, right? He used to play with Zion. Dude, his jump shot's gotten better year after year after year after year. He works on his game. So I don't know if that's a vote of confidence for our Luka Nation listeners, but I've seen his jump shot improve.
So do you feel the same way or exactly the opposite about Zion? Because the Pelicans are my next team here.
I just don't think Zion has the ceiling that people realize, and he has the risk. He has the highest risk, and I don't think his ceiling is that high. That's just my analysis. I think he's a freak. I sent you a picture of Blake Griffin's stats, right?
Yes, you did.
To me, Blake Griffin is the ceiling. That's best case scenario how good Zion will be. But instead of Blake Griffin being mentored and work with Chris Paul as his point guard, Zion has Lonzo Ball as his point guard. You can't compare those 2. If someone out there wants to tell me that Zion is so much better than Blake Griffin, prove it to me. But they're identical players.
Listen, I like their team. I like the team, right? So Zion's not going to have to now be
disaster.
Yeah, because it's a lot of great players. I like the team. They are most likely going to take a step backwards also, and probably be in that 7 to 10 play-in group, which is kind of where they were.
If they're lucky, they'll be 7 to 10. Who is on their team that's good?
So besides Zion, for the Pelicans, you have Brandon Ingram, who I think is very, very good.
Lit. Dude is lit all the time. He can't even open his eyes.
Okay, so if you mean lit in the way that the youngsters mean, like that's fire and his game is lit, I agree with you because he can score whenever he wants, whether he's blazing like you all day or every day or not. But listen, here's the difference between Blake Griffin and Zion, I think, just this year. We'll see what happens. Blake Griffin had to play both ends of the court. He had to be rebounding like crazy and then run the floor. He was their big guy. Well, enter Aquaman. Steven Adams can rebound for the Pelicans now, and Zion doesn't have to do it, right? So
DeAndre Jordan.
Listen, 7 to 10 seed. I'm not talking about these guys being great. You got Brandon Ingram, you got Zion, you have Steven Adams, you have Lonzo Ball. They're all decent players, decent bench. JJ Redick, Josh Hart. You have some versatility, solid reserve, and Nico Melli. They are a decent team. They have a good 10-man rotation with some versatility that can match it in there for Van Gundy. I think Zion will be one of those guys that shows real flashes of like, wow, I can't believe he does that. But I'm with you. I mean, I have not really gotten crazy on both Zion or Ja yet, just because I think both of their cards are sort of priced as if they're going to be the next I don't even know who to say from my generation. Jordan and Elijah Jordan and Barkley. I mean, I don't know who exactly to utilize, but they haven't really done anything yet. And their cards are priced as if they've already, been the best players in the league for a decade. And so I'm not heavy on their cards at all because I think they've run a lot. And neither of them, I think, are going to be, fantastic teams this year. So I have a hard time putting that much money into them.
I'll put it on record. I'll say the Charlotte Hornets have a better record than the Pelicans this year.
You and I will have a side bet on that, although it'll be difficult for one because I don't want to bet against the Hornets because I do like them. I'm just trying to be realistic on this. Like when I pick against the Raiders, even though I'm a Raider fan, it's because I don't think the Raiders are going to win. I like Charlotte. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I like that they have a young core. I think that their franchise is pointed in the right direction. I just don't see them winning a ton of games, but we'll see. We'll talk about that. I think we only have one team to talk about. One team left, and it's I left like the worst for last, I guess. That's what happens when you go on these division things. It's the San Antonio Spurs. This was a team that basically for 20 years you could pencil in as a playoff team and a high seed, and they were going to be great. But after finishing 11th in the Western Conference last year, I mean they're bringing like exactly the same team back basically. I mean they lost who, like Forbes and Bellanini. They're bringing in some rookies. I mean, what is like no Trey Jones, right? And Devin Vassell, who's supposed to be pretty good. They got a lot of young guards, and in the bubble they basically did nothing. I don't know. They were playing 4 guards at a time sometimes in the bubble, which I guess they can do now. They get pretty guard heavy. But
can I take this a different direction real quick?
Yeah, please.
Did you see how adamant Pop was outspoken about President Trump?
No.
Okay. Well, he had some very, very poignant words towards him, and he was very much in favor of the other side. And I don't want to get too political here, but in my opinion, just my opinion, I feel like he was way more focused, and this is how I felt the last year and a half, on more political issues than coaching. And I think you've seen that with their play. I don't think they've looked good. I think they've looked very actually directionless as a team. Like you don't really know.
Yes, I agree with that. He's like a mad scientist, right? It's like but he's going to the laboratory to invent new lineups and what to play with these guys rather than actually like fielding a legitimate basketball team. Could be fun to watch.
And then the reason I started thinking, I went back and I looked at some of the Spurs championship teams, and I was like, really? Pop was never an X's and O's guy. He was always surrounded by players that were really fundamentally sound, right?
Yep.
Tony Parker, Kim Duncan, Ginobili. These are Kawhi. His team was an X's and O's team, and he would manage or inspire personalities. Right now, he has no roster. He has no talent on that team. Dejounte Murray, people keep expecting him to take the next step, but I don't know. I think he's got a questionable jump shot, and he's pretty good defensively, but I don't see it. So I'm pretty low on the Spurs.
You mean you don't think Keldon Johnson's silver PSA 10 should be $1,000 by midseason?
Is it really $1,000?
No, I'm just making fun. It's like but it's over 100. I think I mean it's his silver rookie card is I don't even know anything about this guy, Keldon Johnson. I have no idea. The reason I like to watch the Spurs is because Lonnie Walker is there, and Ian calls him Lonnie Walker IV because he didn't know what the Roman numeral 4 was. So it's Lonnie Walker IV, right? Lonnie Walker IV, bud.
I wish we could share the video of right before we started recording. Ian was watching Angry Birds 2, the sequel, not even the first one, and he was cracking up, man. I couldn't help but laugh. He was so happy.
Yep, Angry Birds 2. This is a favorite for the child. He likes this. But all right,
is that a wrap? You want me to give him a play since you've talked for basically this entire episode?
Well, listen, I mean, I think at this point in time here, we're probably rolling into hopefully people are watching some game time while they're listening to this. Maybe the games have already started by the time they listen to this. But this is like a 2-hour episode. But yeah, please let's give him a play.
You're not gonna believe my play though.
Well, now we have to.
You're gonna think it's crazy. It's gonna be so off kilter relative to this episode that you might hang up on me. Are you sure you want?
Hockey? Is it Dragon Ball Z?
It's NBA. It's NBA.
Okay, well then, perfect. Go for it.
Okay. So Kobe had this card. It was the 1996 Topps Finest card, right? And that card came out. It had like a peel on it, right, Cage?
Yep.
First off, you want to give like
it's called coding.
Coding. Well, why did they do that? You want to give like a 30-second crash course on it?
You know, they were experimenting with finest cards, but before that year, when the finest cards came out of the pack, they were all scratched up, especially with the refractor versions of them all scratched up. So they did this coating on the cards that allowed you to protect the card, right? The card didn't get scratched. I mean, it took some of the sheen off the card. And it's funny because it evolved into a black coating on top of the cards where they did mystery refractors, where when you peeled the black off the card, you could see what was under it. You couldn't tell what was on the card until you peeled it. So an interesting time in the hobby in the 90s.
Right. So I think it's actually kind of cool. I'm a big fan of it. It's interesting. But what it was very unique about the hobby compared to today is no one would grade cards back then. So grading with that peel actually hinders your score. So you'll see there's a premium on PSA 10s with the coating still on it. But my play today is PSA 8 and 9s with the coating. And I venture to guess that a lot of those PSA 8 and 9s actually got PSA 8 and 9s because of a surface issue with the coating, right? Oftentimes there's a little air bubble that gets caught underneath of it. Oftentimes a little bit is peeled off the corner. So my play today is super interesting, I think. It's PSA 8 and 9s of the 1996 Kobe Topps Finest. You could apply this to actually any player, in my opinion, from that year. There's quite a few really good players in that draft class. So it doesn't just have to be Kobe. The PSA 8 and 9s with the peel still on it, ideally an old PSA label, okay? You can get these cards. This is a rookie card. The PSA 8 is probably a $60, $70, $80, $90 card, depending. The PSA 9 with the surface peel still on is probably a $200 card. I would buy those. I would crack them. I would inspect them, and I would take the peel off and maybe resub it to PSA or sub it to BGS.
Wow. As a no coating card. And you think that you got a shot to increase it because it was only knocked down because of the coating was what had problems. Interesting.
Yes. I would inspect it obviously first. But yes, I really, really, really do believe that. And I've had some experience with it myself.
Huh. Never even thought about it. It's a good idea. Watch out.
The reason,
I'm coming to get them all.
Do it. There's quite a few of that card. It's not that low of a pop, and there's quite a few PSA 8 and 9s. But I would say even look for PSA 8 and 9s of the old label too, which I think is cool because the old label PSA slabs, they don't sell really well for some reason. Without like what is that? The little lighthouse logo? Is that what it's called?
Yep, lighthouse logo. Yep, the lighthouse on PSA. Hey, you got me. Here's a play. I'm going to start buying it myself, but I'll let you guys get it tonight because I think it's a play to buy like right now. Hopefully you subscribe to this and you got your notifications on and you're getting this first and foremost and you're going to get and grab them for this game. I'd look on Star Stock, but I'd look on eBay also and grab them. I think with Draymond Green not starting the season off, I think Wiseman is going to actually get some legitimate minutes and he's going to come out of the gate, pretty hot. Making some plays, grabbing some rebounds, filling the stat sheet. Maybe have a couple of those, Sports Center blocks where the ball goes out into the stands. He's got like a 7'6" wingspan. I think he's going to grow into his frame. He's going to learn. Obviously, he's got some great talent around him, teach him how to play the game the right way. He's going to be a young kid playing with a bunch of champions. You can go on eBay right now and for $2 or $3 buy his Prism draft card before the games start. And I would buy him like now. And I'll bet you right from game one, he's going to start to have some good highlight type of plays and some good games. And like I said, fill the stat sheet up. And that'll be a card people are going to be looking for soon. So if I throw a play out there, it is legitimately the exact opposite kind of play as yours. It takes no creativity at all. I'm not cracking, and it's definitely not Kobe. It's a guy who's never played yet. I'm not a huge fan of the Prism draft for long term, but for a in-season play, a quick mover, you're not getting regular Prism cards until March. So for a couple bucks, this is definitely I think a good play.
I'd say the reason why, so Cage has been collecting since like the 1980s. The reason why, and he's seen all the Prism releases. I think you don't like the Prism draft picks is because the Prism release came so quickly after it.
Correct.
This is a unique circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
a few marathon episodes this week, guys, but our listener count's growing. We're getting good feedback, so we let the big man go off. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. You get a little bit of value from it, and NBA's back. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Enjoy this time. We're gonna spend it with you. We're gonna be here.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.